Hey guys, how you going? Hope you're all doing very well. This afternoon I'm going to be doing a review of a horror film from the United States, English language, released in the year 2015, directed by Tom Six, and this film is called The Human Centipede 3. So if you're familiar with the franchise of The Human Centipede, this is the last film, I believe. So the movie takes place in a very remote land in USA where there is a prison run by a psychotic warden. Now this warden, his prisoners are out of order, they're just doing whatever they want, and it has a really bad reputation. So the governor says to the warden that if he doesn't make it better, he is going to be fired along with his assistant. So the increasingly sort of unstable nature that this warden has gets worse and worse, and you very soon learn that this guy's a psychopath. So he's dishing out the worst possible punishment to his prisoners in order to try and get them on the straight and narrow, but it's not working. So the assistant comes up with a last-ditch plan that involves a prison centipede. Now the warden says, "What the hell is that?" and the assistant goes to explain what Tom Six has created. So basically he shows him the first Human Centipede films, 1 and 2. So the warden initially dismisses this, but then as the pressure keeps mounting, he starts to contemplate the idea. So whether or not he does this and what's in store for the prisoners, it's something you're going to have to find out for yourself, because that's as far as I'm going with my synopsis. Now my thoughts on The Human Centipede 3. I actually think that this movie is a great insult to the fans of the Human Centipede franchise. Now for me, I didn't really like the first two films, as you guys could tell if you've seen my other reviews of these movies. I think they're poorly directed, although I will say that Tom Six has some ability. I thought each three of his films had a different mood. So I think that if Tom Six really concentrates on his movies, maybe he could make some good ones. But he's got this obsession with being the sickest movie director ever. And it kind of, that notoriety that he is so desperately seeking clouds his judgment on a movie. So he's nowhere near the likes of Gaspar Noé. Now Gaspar Noé, he feels like a much more mature director where he's doing it in a very subtle way and it's grounded in realism. Whereas in these movies, they're not grounded in a lot of realism, especially the last one. This movie is more like a cartoon. It's exaggerated. I can understand the fact that this feels like a parody of itself and it's making fun of the first two films, but at the same time I think that it's insulting the fans of the first two films, because Tom Six, it feels like he's doing this to the fans. He's not paying them respect, and he's laughing at the fans for even spending money to watch this film. I just think it was very lazy filmmaking. The story is so far over the top that you don't care about it, so that's where it loses all of its Human Centipede feel. At least with the first two movies, they were grounded in some sort of realism. So when the bad things were happening and the painful things were happening, you were thinking to yourself, what if that was me? What the hell would I do? But in number 3, it's so exaggerated to the point where it's a cartoon, so you don't really connect with any of the characters. They're all over the top, exaggerated. You know, the prisoners are really, really bad. The warden was horribly overacted by Data Laser, who was off the first Human Centipede. His character just pretty much screams the whole movie, and that becomes very irritating. So it feels like Tom Six's attempt at comedy doesn't work, because instead of making you laugh, it makes you really angry, and you start getting sick of it because it's over and over and over. It feels like all the ideas are being repeated, and the story is there just for an excuse to make an extreme scene one after the other. So it's basically a collection of these horrible tortures that this warden is inflicting upon his prisoners, and it doesn't really feel like anything else. So the characters, there's the assistant played by the guy who played the main character in number 2. So it's kind of like, as I said, it's laughing at the first two films and it's laughing at the fans as well. So this movie, I mean, it was really bad. I didn't like the first two, but the first two were much better. I think that this is definitely a different feel that the movie has, much similar to the REC franchise. Now don't get me wrong, I'm not saying Human Centipede is anywhere near that brilliant Spanish horror franchise, but the comparisons is that the first two REC films had a similar feel, and then the third one was a horror comedy and it took a different approach. A lot of people were angry with that, a lot of people were saying it was insulting to the fans. So that is the same feeling I had with Human Centipede. I know that there are people who like number 1 and 2, but number 3, as I said, it just feels like it's laughing at the first two. It feels like it's laughing at the fans. It feels like Tom Six has no respect for his fans. And it's just these stupid promos that he does for the actual movies, where he's saying that, you know, Human Centipede is the sickest film ever made. It feels like he's just bathing in that glory. And then the truth is, it's not the sickest film ever made. It's a very sick idea, but it was executed so poorly. And I just think that the director just had his sole focus on repulsing the audience rather than making a film that was going to be memorable. And because it's so far over the top, especially number 3, it's not disturbing because it just feels like you're watching a comic book, you're watching a cartoon. It feels like it's completely disconnected from reality, and it just feels like you're having a dream. And there are some very ghastly things that happen. There is a lot of misogynistic behaviour, and it does bill itself as being 100% politically incorrect, and it is a politically incorrect film, but it's just a mess of a film because it just feels like that really adolescent sort of teenager trying to make as much noise as possible in order to get the attention that he so desperately needs, instead of making a film that Tom Six could be proud of. So this movie definitely suffers from delusions of grandeur. Tom Six suffers from delusions of grandeur. With a better director, this franchise could have been very memorable as far as extreme horror films are concerned. But for me, this movie was just... it was a nosedive, and I think the Human Centipede franchise has crashed and burnt, and hopefully Tom Six gets a little bit of maturity under his belt, goes for a different sort of approach to a film, and makes a horror movie that is respectful to the audience, and maybe he will get a little bit of credibility and a little bit of respect. So I think that this was a juvenile, childish attempt at making a movie, and I'm going to give Human Centipede 3 0 stars. One of the worst horror franchises going out there. Yes, it had a very sick idea. Yes, it was very disturbing, but the idea was a lot more disturbing than the actual films were. So very, very disappointing. As I said, it could have been really good. The idea is very extreme, and I appreciate extreme filmmakers, but this one just felt like a teenager in high school making a film to anger his teachers. So 0 stars, definitely not coming recommended. Alright guys, that's my review. Hope you enjoyed it. Till next time, keep watching movies, and I'll see you later. Bye.